to the beginning of the festive season. Well, at least I start celebrating the festive season in December, unlike some people I know. Some of you have your Christmas trees as early as November or October. Anyway, welcome to a new month. And yes, today I'm all dressed up in my Maasai inspired choker, bracelet, earrings. They're all gifts. I think most of them, all these ones are from my sister because she lives in that side of the community, and I just thought today I should wear them. And yes, today we are going to talk about something traditional, but it's not Maasai. I know some of you who are not Kenyans think that all Kenyans are Maasai. We actually have 45, I think we have 44 or 45 tribes. I'll write it here. I know the president, our former president, added the Indian community as one of our tribes, and I think I have lost count of how many we are, but I'll write it here. That's the number of tribes we are in Kenya. So Maasai is just the most popular, at least in how they dress, and that's why you will find almost every Kenyan who owns something Maasai inspired, whether it's a choker, bracelet, earrings, even the clothes. Sometimes it's just something we do because it's the most popular and it's the most obvious thing people recognize us with. But today we are going to talk about the Kikuyu traditional wedding. Now, the reason I decided to put it as part of this series is because I actually came up with my own idea of what I think people should be wearing for their Kikuyu ceremony, because I thought through just different aspects of the wedding ceremony and basically what a lot of brides go through. The number one thing a lot of brides go through is once you've worn the dress, it's like you cannot wear it again. So I was thinking about coming up with something that people can still wear even after their big wedding ceremony, and I guess at the end you'll tell me if you agree with my ideas. I moved away from the cowrie shells that everybody uses, and for me I found it in my research, I found it a bit impractical because cowrie shells were currency and it doesn't make sense that people will put a lot of them on clothes. So I will share my research, I will share my inspiration, what I came up with, and maybe the Kikuyu ladies watching will tell me if they think it's worth a try or not. I am not Kikuyu. That's a major disclaimer. I'm not Kikuyu. I come from the Luo tribe. So one day I'll probably also do a Luo one. I don't think we are as faithful as following our wedding traditions as some other tribes are here in Kenya, but I'll definitely do a Luo one eventually. But I will do Kikuyu because a lot of clients I get are Kikuyus who go for their traditional ceremonies, and also generally, even if you're not getting married, you're attending one, and most of the time people want to know what to wear. So today I am going to share that, and I guess we begin. So in my research I discovered that the Kikuyus actually have multiple ceremonies for their wedding ceremonies, and I'm going to take you through all of them. So there is a disclaimer which I will probably say at the end because a lot of tribes have something similar to this particular ceremony, and I will get to it when I mention it, but I want to take you through all the ceremonies. Again, disclaimer, I am not Kikuyu, so I may mispronounce or pronounce the words a bit differently, so forgive me in advance, but I'm going to definitely write them down so that you can tell. Another disclaimer, this is research I got from the internet. I am not a Kikuyu, so maybe some things vary or some things have changed over time, whether some have been modernized or some were different traditionally. I am just going to give you what I found, and I guess you will do with the information that I give you what you want. So let's begin. So the first one is Kumenya Mushi, and that specific ceremony is when the groom or the guy who's interested in the girl goes on like a spy mission to the girl's place to basically give their intentions that they want to marry this girl. And usually they'll go with beer, but most of the time they are hosted by the bride's family. And the whole process also is to set a day for dowry negotiations, but generally it is like a spy mission, basically just to check out the family. Most times, I think most tribes have it as check if there's any relation before you get married. I know Luos, we really check that bloodline because we tend to marry far and wide. But anyway, so that is the first ceremony. So let's move to the next one. The next one is Kuhanda Igidi. I had to pause and check because some of these pronunciations are epic. Anyway, so that one, it can be done on the same day or another time. Basically, the groom gives a virgin sheep or goat to book the bride, basically just to state the intention that she's off the market, she's not getting married to this guy, don't even think about it. But that is the next part of the ceremony. So now we get to the popular Ruracio, and I know that there are some Kenyans, even Kikuyus, who use the name Ruracio for all their ceremonies, and I've learned that that's not it. I guess it depends on how well you know your tradition, and I'm not blaming anybody. But I guess with the modern times, there's a lot of mix-up in tradition and knowing them. But this is also just my research. So Ruracio is basically the dowry negotiations. That is when now the groom side of the family go and pay bride price, and it's determined by a lot of factors, but one of the traditional factors was how much the bride's dad paid for her mom. That's something that's usually considered. These days they even consider education, they consider how far advanced the lady has done in her life, basically career-wise and things like that. So I guess it just depends on family to family. And it's usually what you pay is the cost of maybe the animals, because it used to be cows in traditional times. So basically if they say they want 100 cows, you basically calculate how much that is in money, and that's what you give them. The intention is not necessarily that you have to pay everything during that visit. You can pay in installments, but it's very important that you actually finish paying it. It's taken very, very seriously if you intend to go that route. And yes, so Ruracio is the next one. So we go to the one after that. So next we have Itara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these things like a Luo or like, okay, the difference is Kikuyus are Bantus, Luos are Nylon. So sometimes it becomes a very, very big mismatch, at least for me, when you're trying to pronounce Bantu languages. The pronunciations are just very different. Anyway, so Itara is now when the bride side go to visit the groom side, and it's basically almost like handing her over, because her mother basically gives her to her mother-in-law, and she's shown basically what her responsibilities will be after she's basically, now she's married, because now they've visited the groom side. And it's also just for the parents to see where their daughter is going to be and to assure that she actually has a home she's going to. So that's the traditional way. Of course, there are very many modern versions of that, and yeah, people do this in different ways. I have actually attended an Itara ceremony. It was awesome, because it's also rare sometimes to be invited to some traditional ceremonies if you're not from that tribe. But of course, if you have friends from different tribes, sometimes they do invite you to these things. So I was lucky to go for one of those. So there is one more, and it is, so lastly there's Ngorario, and that is the climax of the paying bride price. Because remember I had said during Ruracio you're told how much you agree, how much you pay, and you can pay it in installments. So this specific ceremony, Ngorario, is the end of paying dowry, and some people take years to pay, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it makes you have a relationship with your in-laws. You keep visiting them, giving them some installments. It's usually actually a celebration and all that. But once you finish, you have that ceremony, and now you are stuck in that marriage as a bride. You cannot go back to your parents' house. Now you belong to this other home, and that is why it's very, very important to finish paying your bride price. If you're Kikuyu and you don't agree with what I've said, please write in the comments and maybe correct or whatever, but that's what I found, and I just hope it's correct. And I guess now we move on to my research. So now I would like to take you through my inspiration. I got some historical pictures, pre-colonial pictures of how Kikuyus used to dress, and I looked for specifically what women wore for their Ruracios during that time, and I drew inspiration from that. And I'm going to show you some of the pictures. And basically I also did some modern elements, because remember I said I want to make something you could wear again and something modern. And yes, there's no cowrie shells in any of these pieces, so I hope it makes sense with what I decided to do. I definitely drew a lot of inspiration from the traditional, and I noted that there were very few cowrie shells as well. So let me show you what I found. I would like to mention that all the information I got for my research is from this website called mukuyu.wordpress.com, and they have excellent resources about Kikuyus, all the traditions, not just the dressing. I just mainly focused on the dressing, especially the women's dressing. But if you really want to learn a lot about Kikuyu culture and roles women had in society and everything like that, even food, I think he's covered almost everything. Do go and appreciate him and give him a shout out and write a comment. A lot of people really seem to be very happy and find the site very resourceful. So this is a sketch I'm working with, and I will explain each and every piece, how I added it, what I changed. And the whole point is not to copy exactly what the Kikuyu bride wore, but just to get inspiration from the past into a modern look of what I would design for somebody who would want a dress inspired by their culture, specifically the Kikuyu culture. So I'll break it down as we continue with these slides. So before I begin, I thought it would be wise to show you a snapshot of the look. This is the whole look, and you can see in each picture the look looks different because I kept adding into the look, because remember the whole point is that the bride has pieces that she can be able to wear again, and also she can wear it with different things. She doesn't even have to wear it together. And the point is just to be very, very practical with weddings, because I really do feel like sometimes it's really sad that you are a bride and you only get to wear the most expensive dress you'll probably ever own once. So that is also another part of the inspiration for doing this whole thing. And I know there are some people who actually have practical clothes for their traditional weddings, and there's some who don't, but I just thought that this was a concept I should come up with, and I started with this. So I will explain each piece. I've always admired this headpiece, earpiece kind of thing that I've seen in a lot of pre-colonial Kikuyu dressing. I don't know what it's called. I couldn't find the name online in the websites, but I thought of a modern way that I could come up with it and emulate it, and in the name of trying to just help brides have a look that they can wear for more than a day. I saw this picture on Pinterest of this little girl, and I thought it worked perfectly, and this is what we came up with. And of course I added a halo. I made a gold halo. It was just a prop I had, and I thought it would still work very, very well just to elevate the hairstyle. And I thought it was a good look, especially it really looks like you're a bride. I just thought it really brought out being a bride, but with a modern twist to it. So I really love to hear what you guys think about it. So this is a shout out to where I got my information from. Before I continue, you will see the name of the blog, mukuyu.wordpress.com, and that's where I got majority of my information from. It was easier because they really were very, very resourceful with the information. So the one thing I will mention is that I noted that the way of dressing, at least everyday dressing, because I had to be very practical with the way of life, it was two pieces. It was a skirt and a cloak, and the cloak was worn, maybe not all the time. Some of the pictures I did get were the ladies were topless, and I cannot share that on YouTube because I don't know what happens when you share those kind of pictures on YouTube. But just know that there are pictures that are like that, but I decided to choose these ones that the ladies are covered up on top, and I like the drape of the hide that they were wearing because that is actually skin from an animal that they used to wear, made of hide, basically leather. And I just like the flow of it, and I just came up with a very simple dress based on that, because the pictures themselves also show a very simple dress, and I wanted something flattery, something that will not, I know it looks one shoulder in the picture and the inspiration, but I didn't want a bride to start feeling uncomfortable with how they are dressing, because not everyone likes a one shoulder. So I wanted to be very practical, so I just made the simple dress. I did bead it at the bottom to give it some weight, because I used a very light fabric, just so that the fabric wouldn't flow away. Also, just to mimic the flow of leather that stays in place, despite the fact that the pictures look very drapey. I just thought this really suited it, and I did stick to the brown color. I went for a darker shade, the color that's usually used for these kind of dresses at this time. It's usually a lighter shade, but I like the darker shade. I thought it also brought out the model's skin very well. Yeah, so this is my inspiration for the basic dress. Some of the other inspiration I got was what some of the pre-colonial Kikuyus wore in terms of jewelry. So one of them was the anklet. It seemed to be very, very minimal, so I just decided to create a modern version, basically just make one with gold beads, because my theme was actually gold and brown and white, earth tone kind of things. And then also I noticed that the women tended to wear more jewelry, beaded jewelry, I guess maybe when there's a special occasion, because of course they had lives and they had practical things they had to do, like farming and taking care of their children and their homes and everything like that. So I guess when they dressed like this, it was for a special occasion. So I did make a neck piece that can easily be removed, that matches the corset, which I'm going to talk about next. But yeah, so I decided to make a neck piece that you could also detach. There was a leather apron that young girls wore that was basically like a loincloth, and then there was also a beaded piece, a beaded apron that was worn, and some even had antelope hooves, which I thought was very, very interesting. And you can see from the pictures that not everything had cowrie shells. They were a different type of beads, probably gotten even from seeds or just things that they had around them. So just not to make it very literal, I did find a fabric that I thought mimicked some of the beadwork on these pieces, and I created a corset, because a corset is actually very practical. It cinches the waist, it makes your body more flattering, and it also gives you support. And it's basically, I just drew that inspiration to make a corset, because I was also thinking about the modern interpretation of these items, and the truth is that it's very impractical to wear that right now. You can't really go anywhere with it. So that was now the inspiration for my corset. So this is a complete design. So you can see that there is a hairstyle, there's a headpiece, there's a neck piece, there is a corset, there are anklets and bracelets, and there is of course the dress, which is also beaded at the bottom for that weight. So would definitely love to hear what you guys think. Just to tell you something, I have my Instagram page, Cinched by Miamara. I've written it here, and if you check my my highlights, one of my highlights, because I was actually documenting the whole process when I was making the dress on my Instagram. So there are people who actually follow the whole process of how I made it. So if you want to see the whole process, just go to my Cinched by Miamara Instagram page, and on the highlights you'll see the whole process. I showed how I did the beadwork and how I made the corset and everything, and it took a very, very long time. I also made a few reels, so if you have been following me on that specific Instagram page, you're going to see, you've probably seen the dress before. So right now I just want to show you the behind the scenes for the preparation of the photo shoot and the video shoot. I did everything myself in terms of the video and the photo shoot and of course making the outfit. And I also interviewed my model, just because she's a Kikuyu, and I thought it was just appropriate to get a Kikuyu bride to model the Kikuyu outfit, and asked her what she thought. So it might be a bit confusing the way I did it because I kept forgetting to ask certain questions, but just watch it and learn from it, and here is the footage. I'm good. So I just wanted your feedback on the waist cincher by Cinched by Myanmar.
One, I really want to admit I feel so good and pretty in it. Yeah, it's so comfortable. I can actually sit, and I think this is the best posture I've sat on, and I feel very comfortable. There are also no foldings, so this is perfect. It's just straight up, yeah.
And have you been able to wear it by yourself?
Yes, I have actually worn it by myself. So comfortable, very easy, bunny ears, and we're good. Done.
Awesome. All right, Nemo. For the theme of this whole outfit that you have modeled was my take on the modern Ruracio dress for a Kikuyu bride. So I'd like your take on it as a promising Kikuyu bride.
To be honest, I like the whole idea. It makes me feel like my culture is important and still needs to be appreciated, because that's the fact. It feels so modern, it doesn't feel out of place, and it also makes me feel pretty, so I think that's also important. I feel comfortable in it, and I feel like my culture is being represented, so technically I feel really nice about it, and I'm actually doing it for my ancestors. I think they didn't get to do this, but well, representing my ancestors. I like this, I really do.
So what do you think about the modern touch of having a corset? Because my idea was actually that you would have a keepsake for your traditional wedding to be able to wear with other outfits. So that's why there are a lot of separate pieces from the neck piece and the corset.
I actually think this really works well, because one, it makes the dress even look better in appearance. The dress looks nice by itself, but also with the corset it just adds that amazing touch. And of course the fact that I'll have to keep this even after the Ruracio makes life beautiful. I can wear it in a black dress, whatever dress I choose to. So yeah, nice.
Awesome. So another thing is the hair was done by Quinta at the back there. Quinta Wave. She also did the makeup. She's very, very good at, you can see she made Nemo look fantastic. And the inspiration for the headpiece was the Kikuyu headpiece that has beaded ear loops kind of thing. So that's what the braids are for. So the whole point is, once you have this hairstyle, you can still wear it for a couple of more days even after the ceremony, so that you don't have to just have an accessory you'll never wear again. But this is also a fantastic hairstyle to wear even beyond the ceremony. Yes. So that's it from me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like this kind of content, especially the behind the scenes Kenyan tradition stuff, please let me know. I'm very much willing to do more of these. It takes a bit more time, of course, to research, but of course there are very many ways I could do it. And I do have a Maasai friend who has some information about their traditional clothes. I will try and get her on the channel at some point, and she's a historian, so her information is quite accurate in terms of the Maasai culture. She's very knowledgeable, and she did grow up in a very traditional way, so it would be very exciting to have her. I hope I can get her. But generally, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been informative. The research process for me has been awesome. I'm learning so much about the different tribes of Kenya. The whole point of me starting to make corsets as well was actually to celebrate African culture. Eventually, I would love to travel around the continent and make corsets that are inspired by African culture. It's very expensive, very daunting, but maybe in my lifetime I'll be able to do it. We will see how that goes. Either way, please leave your comments. Let me know what you think, and I guess I'll see you next week with another episode. Bye.